Hey, welcome to day 3 of your Animal Pinch Pot project. Today, one of the first things I want you to do is make a new tool for yourself. You'll need an old pencil, a paper clip, some tape, the same tape you use to tape down your canvas would be great, and a needle nose pliers. So first take the paper clip and bend out the two sides of the paper clip so you're left with a loop on one side and then two long ends of the wire on the other sides. You're going to tape that to the eraser end of the pencil, like that. So use a lot of tape, wrap it around really tightly because you're going to be using that little paper clip loop to carve, and so it has to be taped really tightly to the pencil so that it's really strong and it's not going to come out as you're doing your carving. So wrap that tape around and around and around and around and around and around and around. A whole lot of tape wrapped around real tight so that paper clip loop is really strong. And you're going to use this for carving and doing some subtractive sculpting. So that is the first thing you want to do. You want to make that. And if you want this is a version of a ribbon tool, which is a clay tool that we have in the classroom. But our ribbon tools are really big, and the one that you make is really nice and small for detail work. You can also use your needle nose pliers to pinch the end of the paper clip to make it have a smaller carving area. Okay, so I'm working on my honey badger. I'm going to put it on a plastic lid. Oh, nice honey badger. I'm going to put it on a plastic lid, which is going to allow me to elevate it and kind of pivot my board, my tray that my animal is on. You don't have to do this, but I just think it makes it easier to turn. My composition is a dynamic composition where the body is turned a little bit. Remember, you can have a dynamic composition where your animal's body is curled up, or you could have a static composition where it is straight. So I have my popsicle stick, which you have in your swag bag, and I'm going to use it to create hips and shoulders in the body of my animal. So I'm not adding any extra clay, which is good because I don't want to add a lot of extra weight. So I'm using it to almost lever or push back the clay so the areas I'm not pushing back look like they're popping out farther than the areas I've pushed back. So it's a really soft way of creating dimension. And your clay should still be in the plastic or maybe leather hard stage now, so it should be pretty yielding. It should allow you to press it in, and you shouldn't have to push too hard. So I'm using the popsicle stick, the hard edge of the popsicle stick, to get kind of a line pressed into the clay, and then I'm using it like a lever and pushing the clay back so that the area that, like the belly, I want the belly to look like it's lower than this shoulder or this arm, and so I'm using the popsicle stick to push the belly back. It's a soft way of creating dimension and creating a little bit more realistic three-dimensional quality to your work. So this way you don't have to add a lot of extra clay to make a shoulder or a hip. Okay, that looks pretty good. This is the tail that I couldn't put on the other day because the clay was too soft, but now the tail is leather hard. So I'm going to take a quick second here to slip and score this tail on, and I'm going to speed it up because I think you get the gist of what I'm doing. Slipping and scoring, and then because it's a major body part, I'm going to wrap a coil of clay around the connection and use that coil of clay to meld, so it's a really strong connection. And even though my clay is leather hard now, and even though I've scored and slipped and wrapped an extra coil and melded, I'm still going to put that little clay support underneath it because this is one of the weaker parts of my piece right now. So I'm just going to support it temporarily until I really know it's strong enough to support itself. All right, now I'm ready to start making some ears. So honey badger's ears are really, really small. In fact, in a lot of pictures, I couldn't even see his ears, but they're just little round ears similar to what you would find on a bear If you're making a dog's ears, maybe they're going to be more oval shaped. If you're making a bunny ear, it's going to be really long and oval. If it's a cat ear, maybe it's more of a triangle. So just pay attention, look at your animal's ears online and see what their ears look like. And you could just make it flat like I have, but I want to create a little bit more dimension. So I'm taking the end of a pencil and I'm just curling that ear around that pencil so it has a little bit more of a three-dimensional quality. You're kind of tacoing the shape and putting a little fold into it. So now the ear is more like the actual animal ear. Our ears are like cups and they help us catch the sound and bring that sound into our ear holes. So by cupping that ear shape, whether you're making a bunny or a dog or a cat or a horse or whatever, you're just making your ear a little bit more realistic by making it have that divot, that little sunken spot that mimics that actual cupped shape and hole that we have in our real life ears. So these little ears, now I have to figure out how are they going to go on. Sometimes we make the mistake of assuming animal ears are at the top of an animal's head. They're actually more on the sides of the head. Look at a picture of your animal and just pay attention to where do the ears come out of their head. So I'm scoring and slipping these ears. I'm melding a little bit, but I haven't added any extra clay for melding because these aren't load-bearing ears. They're not huge. If I was doing a bunny rabbit with really big ears or an elephant with really big ears, I would add extra clay and meld. So now I have my carving tool that I've made, the one I made with the paper clip, and I'm carving out a nose. Now, your animal might not have a nose like my animal. Maybe you're going to add extra clay for a beak or add extra clay for a trunk, or maybe you're going to add little fish lips or whatever kind of animal you're going to make. It might have a different nose or a mouth than mine. But my animal has a cute little nose and I'm going to carve around that. So I'm doing some subtractive sculpting right now. I'm subtracting the clay. Everything else I've done has pretty much been additive sculpting. So now I'm subtracting some clay to make that nose stand out from the skin around it. So it looks like the nose is more three-dimensional. And this is really awkward because I'm trying to do this so you guys can see it on the camera and I can't really see what I'm doing. But I'm trying to draw the line that comes from the nose that then splits into the two halves of the mouth. So on a mammal, on most mammals, they have a nose and then there's a lip split that comes down from that nose, and then that lip split turns into two lines of the mouth. Now I'm doing something kind of weird here. I am making a honey badger, right? And honey badgers are fearless. They attack cobras. They're really, really aggressive animals. So I'm going to make my honey badger having fallen asleep with a snake in its mouth. So I just used the eraser end of a pencil to push in some holes on either side of my honey badger's mouth. And I'm going to slip and score a snake in the mouth of my sleeping honey badger. And the snake is going to be like really chill and sleeping. We're going to call it sleeping in the honey badger's mouth. So I sped this up just so you don't spend forever watching this process, but I'm slipping and scoring the parts of my snake into the mouth of the honey badger, and here's my little snake mouth, and then I'm slipping and scoring the snake to the body of my honey badger too, because I can't just connect it in one spot. The more places I connect it, the stronger it's going to be and the less likely it is to break off. So that's going to be really important with tails, wings, flippers, whatever you make. Try to connect them in more than one spot. The more points of connection you have, the stronger that feature is going to be. So there's my snake, lovingly cradled in the jaws of my honey badger. So now I'm going to add even more details. I'm going with fine details today to my honey badger. Honey badgers have really long claws. So I'm going to use the writing end of my pencil. Kind of a dull pencil works really well for this. And I'm going to push in 3 little holes that are going to be where I insert 3 little claws. Now this is some pretty fine detail work, and I'm not necessarily expecting you to get this crazy with the detail, but you can. You can do this to create grass, you can do this to create eyelashes, you can do this to create whiskers. So if you use a pencil to push in a hole, and then roll a tiny, tiny little whisker, or a tiny, tiny little claw, or whatever it is it's little that you want to make, or even a fang. This would make great fangs if you're doing an animal that has fangs. So I'm dipping each little claw that I make in slip, and then inserting that slipped claw into the holes that I've made. And I could just, smack it to the outside of the foot, but by making the claw look like it's actually growing out of the skin, I'm just making a little bit more realism, a little bit more believable, three-dimensional sculpting there. So I'm doing the front claws here too. And these claws are going to be incredibly fragile, so I'm going to strengthen them by kind of pinching them together so they're touching each other, which is going to help strengthen the claws and make them less likely to break. All right, there's my honey badger sleeping, snake in mouth with claws. Next, I get to do the eyes, and the eyes are my favorite part. So you're going to take one of your paper clips, and if you press the tip of your paper clip into the clay, it makes a really cute sleepy eye. It just makes this little U shape that works as a cartoony sleeping eye. If you want a more realistic eye, you're absolutely welcome to sculpt your eye by making a ball of clay and then slipping and scoring that and blending that into the wall or the face of your animal. The first eyes I made were a little bit small, so I used a popsicle stick to make bigger eyes, and I like those better in proportion to my face. So I would encourage you to do just a real simple eye by pressing in either your paper clip or pressing in your popsicle stick. So I'm doing a little bit more subtractive sculpting now with that sculpting tool that I made, the paperclip tool, and I'm just carving in a little bit more definition into the arms of my creature, trying to set the arms apart from the surrounding area. This is a good example of subtractive sculpting, and it's kind of satisfying to do. I haven't done a lot of it in this sculpture that you've seen, but it's a nice way to take away some thickness. So if you know you have some kind of real fat, thick areas, you can do a little bit of carving with that new tool that you made. Okay, so this is going to be a lidded jar. So it needs a handle, and it also needs a lid eventually too, but I'm going to talk about that tomorrow. So you need to sculpt something that's going to go up on the back of your animal, and we're going to put it on today. We're going to score and slip it today, and we're going to let it get all nice and strong. And then tomorrow, when we cut the lid off, we'll be able to use that handle to pick up your lid. If it's too soft, it won't work as a handle today. So I just slipped and scored another snake on the back of my animal. You could do a loop, like a rainbow. You could do a pebble. You could do, you could have like a fin up on the top of your animal, and that fin could become the handle. You just need something up on the back that's going to allow you to be able to pick up this lid once it is stronger and once we have cut a lid off your animal, which we'll do at our next session. I even had to add little sleepy eyes to my snake. Oh, sleepy snake. He's so happy to be sleeping on the honey badger. Sorry. Okay, so now I'm using my carving tool to add texture. All animals have texture. And so mammals have fur, fish have scales, birds have feathers, worms have rings. I don't know why I said that. Nobody's making a worm. But every animal has texture. So I want you to consider, what can you do to the surface of your clay that will give your animal a believable texture. So this might take a little while. I've sped up the video so that you don't have to spend forever watching me make a hairy texture. Another way you can do it is you can use a fork to make fur. So you can use that fork to create that illusion of fur. If you're making a bird or a fish, the end of a fork works really well to press a scale texture, or this plastic knife works too to press in that scaly texture. It's not a super great shape. You can probably find a better shape than that to use. And if you want to do a fine hairy texture, the serrated edge of the knife I gave you would work as a real fine hairy texture too. So I do want you to find some sort of texture that you can add to your animal, even if it's just on the chest of the animal or just on the face of the animal, just something that's going to give the surface some interest. So I'm finishing adding my texture. Carve, 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 subtract, subtract. And so now one really important thing, kind of a finishing step I want you to do, is I want you to poke some holes in the head of your animal. And I don't want us to be able to see them. So carefully pick up your animal, take your toothpick, and just to be on the safe side, I want you to poke 3 or 4 holes up into the head of your animal, because the head of your animal is hollow. And if that air can't escape out of the head, then kaboom, it's going to blow in the kiln. So we need a couple holes in that head. When we cut the lid off the body of your animal, that will allow the air to escape from the body of your animal. So you don't have to poke any holes in the body yet. So Mr. Honey Badger is looking pretty good. I think I'm done with my details for today. So I'm going to slide the whole thing into the bag. If your clay is really soft and plasticky and leather hard, then just put it in the bag with no paper towel. If your clay is leather hard, then definitely do a paper towel to keep it leather hard, and definitely put it in a bag. So to clean up, please use your popsicle stick to clean up all the little shavings and carvings. Don't leave those out at your table. They're going to get everywhere if you just leave them out. So use your popsicle stick to scrape them up into a nice little pile, and then brush them off into your hand and throw them away. You don't worry about recycling little things like that. Or you can throw them in your slip too. They'll just disintegrate into the slip. But make sure you clean your table every day, please. Your parents will appreciate it. So to summarize your assignment for today, you're making a clay tool, scoring, slipping, and melding small details on your animal, poking holes in its head, adding a handle, and taking a photo of everything, including your new tool, and uploading that photo to Schoology. Thanks!